Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday. I think there's either 2 or 3 more Mondays left after this, something like that. Not too many. So, here's the thing. When I came to campus today, the printers and the copiers in this building are not working very well. To say it all, I don't know. I haven't had any luck with them. And Network and Technology Services knows about it, and I believe they're working on it. But yeah, so I haven't been able to photocopy or make any handouts for you guys all day. So I'm going to have to kind of wing things a little bit today. And because I haven't been able to print a lot of the assignments that some of you have sent me via email or however, electronically, I don't even know that I want to return any assignments today either, because I just like to keep them all together in one batch so I don't get all discombobulated and disorganized. So that means, and I even had a quiz that I was going to print off for you guys today, and I couldn't do that, so darn, right? You don't have a quiz in class.
I'm disappointed.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. So I don't know, I mean, my computer's been slow all day, and I called Nats about, so it's just not been a good day, at least for getting things done, being productive. So I don't know, I'm ready to throw in the towel. I am kind of ready to throw in the towel. I don't know what I'm going to be able to get done this afternoon if the computers and the printers aren't working. At any rate, let's do this. Since I don't want to get backed up on work, and I definitely couldn't print the quiz for you guys, I'm not going to collect anything for grade 2. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're just going to start today by going over that worksheet.
So I was just going to ask you if you, really want to print stuff off, if you tried the library today, or if that's broken down to
No, I haven't tried the library. I just tried, there's the 2 machines, on the first floor.
Here, I'm going to the library later, and maybe try to print something off for you, and see if it's working.
Okay, I'll see if there's something that, absolutely cannot wait. But if it can wait, I'll probably postpone. Maybe they'll get working by later today or tomorrow. Yeah, thanks. But no, I haven't been over to the library yet. I've just been trying to get everything I can done with all my classes yet today. So I'm gonna cross my fingers and hope that all this stuff works, so I can show you what you should have for your music study worksheet that you have for today. Sometimes I guess what they say about Mondays is kind of true. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Monday is kind of broken type days. Yeah, I don't know how this means. Maybe you can just kind of.
You know that old song called Bad Flowers?
Oh, that's not well. I don't consider that an old song because I was.
It's in my house. Well, I heard there was a really song, so what I was
All right, so starting on the front side of your homework, it says the beginning. What key are we in? The first 2 chords may appear deceptively simple, but are somewhat misleading. Analyze the first 2 chords in C major, then analyze them again in a key that might make more sense. So here they are in C major, and I may have alluded to this a little bit at the very end of last class on Friday last week, that the Beethoven begins his very first symphony that he ever wrote with a chromatic chord. That even included a diatonic chord as the first. It's not a 1 chord regular, any diatonic chord that fits in the key, but rather it is a 5-7-4. And that's how we analyze that first chord in terms of C major, which is the key of the first movement of the symphony. So 5-7-4 going to 4. And the reason we know that that's a 5-7-4 is because it has a B flat. It's got a chromatic pitch, a pitch that does not fit in C major. We do not call this chord a 1-7. We call it a dominant 7 of the chord that comes after, 5-7-4. It is a dominant 7. It's C, E, G, B flat, so we can learn some. Now, what key might you hear though, if you just heard these first two chords and you had no idea what the original or the written key was? What key would you assume? Yeah, F major, I would. That's what you're going to say, Alexander.
Yeah.
Yeah. So F major, there you go. It makes a lot more sense. If his first symphony would have been in F major, maybe to start the symphony that way, because it would at least be 5-7-1, two chords that fit in the key. So that's what I would do for the second part. I hear F major. If that's all you hear, you don't know what the key, original key of the symphony is. So 5-7-1.
I like how you do some shade on Beethoven chord C.
What did I do?
You're like, they're not character part like Beethoven.
Yeah.
Does it right.
Yeah, because I mean this keyboard is a reduction. You have to distill so many staves of all these orchestral instruments, and Beethoven can do the voice leading, the part reading with all those part writing with all those individual instruments. He can do that right with all those staves, but here you just kind of have to cram it together just so you can hear the still groove. So Beethoven does do it right. It's just yeah. Okay. So with that said, let's take a look at your analysis. The first, what can I put on the 4 measures? Is this what you have? Remember 5-7-4 to 4 begins the piece. Then we have in measure 2 just some diatonic chords, a couple of them. Then in measure 3 there's a secondary dominant, 5-7-5. And then in measure 4 you could put 5 or do I have the 7 purpose? Yeah. I guess technically there's an F in there, but it's not part of the gap.
There were some non-chord tones early.
Yeah, I think there are some non-chord tones. I don't know that I analyzed all of them.
Yeah, I didn't. I was just making sure.
Yeah. That would be correct. The next measure, I have 2 chords in measure 5, 5-7, followed by 5-4-2.
So when you do like number 4, if it's as long as it's not like the G sharp is actually like a leading tone to the A. So it's like,
Yeah, the G sharp in this case is actually what's called a chromatic passing tone.
okay.
It's not even part of the chord. It's just a passing tone. Yeah. So does that answer?
I was kind of confused when I was looking at it at first. I'm like, well, there's a very much G and then there's G sharp and then it goes to the A, so I'm like, I'm guessing. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, the G sharp is definitely a passing tone. It doesn't fit the main notes that you want in measure 4, the ones right on the down B, which are just G and B and D. If you wanted to include this F way over here on the end of whatever beat this is, B3, you could call it 5-7. But in measure 5, you should have a 5-7 and a 5-4-2. On the back side, at least for my I've got a 1-6, because that's what 5-4-2 is supposed to go to. Followed by a 5-6-5 in measure 7, and then at the very last beat, there's a 5-7 in position. So I'm just looking at where the bass changes kind of thing, or word changes. In measure 8, 9 and 10, did you get a passing 6-4 in measure 9? Rather than a 1-6-4. Measure 8 is a 1 and a 2-6. Those are just diatonic chords. Why did I call this a passing 6-4 rather than a 1 or potential 6-4? Can anyone tell me? Yeah, you can't have a 1-6-4 going to a 7 diminished 7 of 6. 1-6-4, which is the potential 6-4, should go to 5. Besides, this isn't a cadence or the end of a phrase anyways. Can Can I support my assumption that this is a passing 6/4? Look at these bass notes I've circled. F, G, G sharp. Is that not pretty much stepwise motion in bass? So passing 6/4, 7 diminished 7 of 6, followed by 6 and then a 4. And then finishing off now, you can go to the credential 6/4. There it is, 1, 6, 4, 5, 7. And I believe I played this last class on Friday. I don't have it queued up on YouTube, otherwise I still have to play it again.
Just out of curiosity, this was one of the why was these were
Yes, they do look like parallel octaves. And in the actual symphony, if I recall correctly, what we have is he's not trying to have two different voices. He's trying to just have one voice that's doubled at the octave. And I believe those 8 notes are played by French horns in the symphony. They're just played at octaves. But yeah, that's otherwise it's a good question. So, how about that? You know all that you need to know to analyze the first 12 or 13 measures of Beethoven's first symphony. That's saying something. Looking down at the next section now, the part rating. My 5, 7, and 5, I had to take it, I believe, to an incomplete 5. Why? That's because I have the secondary leading tone in our voice. I think, is there a way that you could take it to a 5? Well, the C and the tenor has to go down by step, because that's the chords of 7th. And as a tendency tone, it has to go down by step. The F sharp, in the top voice, that's the secondary leading tone. That is, it's the leading tone to the root of the next chord, so it should go up. And then there's really no way for the alto to get to a D without writing parallel fifths or contrary fifths at the bass. You see what I'm saying? So if you took the alto note as A, if you somehow made it jump up to a D, or made it leap down to a D, that's either parallel fifths or contrary fifths, and that would be wrong. That's why I can't end up with a complete G-D chord. I just have to end up with 3 G's and 1 D. I don't know if you have any questions or concerns about that. The next one, 7 diminished 7 of 6, goes to root position 6. And those are the two tendency tones. One just goes up and one just goes down. The G sharp goes up because it's the leading tone to the root of the next chord. The F comes down because it is the 7th of the chord. And I believe we can end up with a complete 6 chord. So, the past, what is it, week or two, I don't remember how long it's been, we really hit secondary chords hard. We talked about secondary dominance, how to spell them, how to part rate them, how to analyze them. We talked about secondary leading tone chords, how to spell them, how to analyze them, how to part rate them. But today on the assignment sheet, I'm going to switch gears and start talking about key relationships as a preface to modulation or key changes. We'll start touching on that next class. Yeah. So you can hang on to this since I'm not collecting it today. I was really looking forward to that quiz too. It had a little bit of analysis and actually calculated something to do. It was awesome. It was really good. Okay, so normally I was going to make 2 handouts for you, but since I couldn't make photocopies, I'm going to have to show everything I can up on the screen and or on the board. And who knows, maybe I'll be able to get these copies made for next class. We'll see. Let's start by talking about key relationships. On the handout that I was planning to give you, there is a table with 5 columns that talks about 5 different kinds of key relationships. I don't know if you knew that, but there are 5 different types of relationships possible between any 2 keys in music. In fact, you've probably heard of some of them already. Maybe those of you that have me for theory 1, did we talk about, I'm sure I must have mentioned, do you know what relative is? He's in a relative relationship. So if you don't, that's all right, we'll cover it here. Well, let's start on the left. These are the 5 types of relationships possible between any keys. Enharmonic keys, parallel keys, relative keys, closely related keys, and distantly related keys. Sometimes distantly related keys are referred to as foreign keys. But those 2 terms mean the same thing for our purpose. Okay, enharmonic keys. 2 keys in music that sound the same but are spelled differently are said to be enharmonic. So not only can pitches be enharmonic, spelled differently but sound the same, but key centers can be enharmonic. They can be spelled differently but sound the same. 2 enharmonic keys is an example that I have there, C-sharp major and D-flat major. Right? Those keys would sound exactly the same played on the piano, but they would be notated a lot differently. C-sharp major would have 7 sharps and all these sharps in the music. D-flat major would have 5 flats in the music. Going from or moving from one enharmonic key to another is not considered a change of key or a modulation. By the way, let's use the definition for modulation. Let's go and make this modulation. Modulation is a change of key or key. But moving from one enharmonic key to another is not considered a key change, and you know why? Because the original tonic or tonal center does not move when you go from an enharmonic key to another. C-sharp major. The tonic is C-sharp. If I went to D-flat major, does the tonic note move? No, still the exact same thing, right? So this is C-sharp major. I'm sorry, major. This is also D-flat major. But I can notate that same sound 2 different ways. So another example, for instance, would be, well, let's see. Yeah, there's a few other enharmonic keys on the circle of fifths. For instance, if I started writing a piece in F-sharp major, and I went to sort of changed my notation and went into G-flat major, do I have a key change or a modulation? No, I don't. Because the 2 keys are enharmonically related. They sound the same, but they're spelled differently. I think there's one other pair of enharmonic keys on the circle of fifths besides C-sharp and D-flat, F-sharp and G-flat. What's the other pair of enharmonic keys in the circle fifths?
B, C flat.
That's right, B major and C flat major. Very good. Okay, so that's one type of possible relationship between two keys, and that is an enharmonic relationship. Let's go to the next column in this table, parallel keys. Parallel keys involve one major key and one minor key always. It's the major and minor keys that share the same tonic note. Example, C major and C minor. Those are in a parallel relationship because their tonic is both C. One is major, one is minor. That's really all there is to understanding parallel key relationships. If I am in E major and I'm composing music in this key and all of a sudden I slip into E minor, the terminology is I've gone from E major and I've moved to or slipped into the parallel minor. So E is the parallel minor, E minor is the parallel minor of E major, and E major is the parallel key of E minor. Goes both ways. One is the parallel key of the other. Movement from one key to its parallel key is also not considered a key change. Why? Because the tonic doesn't move. It remains E regardless. Or it remains C, whatever your parallel keys are. The tonic remains stationary, it doesn't move. So instead of a key change, if I went from E major to E minor or C major to C minor, instead of calling it a modulation, it's actually called a change of mode. And in this case, we mean a change from the major mode to the minor mode or vice versa. The minor mode to the major mode. That's what that terminology means. Yes?
You say one major, one minor, does that mean maybe like any manually, or is it, can you use other variables, or does it matter right now?
Well,
Or I mean, obviously.
in terms of parallel keys, it's only a definition in relation to major and minor scales. It does not pertain to the modes like minor, lower, phrasing, and so forth. So parallel keys are, that term is only used in relation to a major key and a minor key that have the same tonic.
Okay.
Like F sharp major and F sharp minor, or G minor and G major, that kind of. Yeah. And when you go from the minor to the major but keep the same tonic, it's just called a change of mode, because you're going from the major mode to the minor mode. But it not really, it doesn't encompass in its definition, it doesn't entail the church modes, like the ones that you're talking about, like the Ohm,
Yeah,
those kinds of things.
that's the main thing I was wondering about, is like if you went from ione to MIDI.
Yeah, that would be, I guess you could call that a change of mode as well. But in terms of this class, really we're only going to be dealing with major minor.
Okay,
Major minor scales, yep. Okay, so that's the parallel key relationship. Now let's get to the middle one. This is what I started with at the beginning, relative keys. I must have mentioned this term, even if I didn't make a big point of it, but major and minor keys that share the same key signature are said to be in a relative relationship. So two keys as an example would be C major and A minor, right? They both have no flats, no sharps. So their key signature, there's two different keys, but their key signatures are identical. And those, when you have that happen, the two keys are said to be in a relative relationship. And if you think about it, the only way that that's possible is that one of the keys has to be major and one of them has to be minor for them to share the same key signature on the circle of fifths. Okay? So let's think of some other possible keys that are in a relative relationship. If I ask you what is the relative major of B minor, what major key would you give me? Which one? Not G. D. Yeah, they both have two sharps in their key signature, right? So they share the same key signature. If I ask you what is the relative minor to A major, what key would you be thinking of?
F sharp.
F sharp minor, that's right, they both have 3 sharps. And if I said, okay, well, what is the relative, how do I want to do this? I don't want to do that one, that's too easy. What is the relative major of C minor?
Is it E flat?
E flat major, that's right, because they both have 3 flats in their key signature. You remember those of you that had me for theory 1, you remember way back when I had you memorize your major and minor? How is that doing? Is that still up here trying to sort you tried to block it out. All right. Movement from one key to its relative key is considered a modulation because 2 different tonal centers are involved. If I start a passage of music in B minor and later on go to D major, the tonic has moved. The beginning, the tonic is B. Later on in the passage, the tonic has become D, a different pitch altogether. So going back and forth between relative keys is considered a key change officially. When you go from like A major to F sharp minor, that is considered a modulation. 2 different tonic notes, 2 different tonal centers. Now this next statement I have is not meant to be confusing, but let's think about what this means. All relative, oh, we don't know what closely related keys are yet. Hang on, I'll come back to that. Let's go to closely related keys. The definition of 2 keys are said to be closely related if their key signatures differ by no more than 1 accident. I think the best way to perhaps illustrate this is by showing you. By the way, you know, if you have your books, you could like open up to page 12 and you could look at a circle of fifths. And that would probably, I mean, I'll show the circle of fifths on the screen here, but that would probably save a little time because I don't have copies of the circle of fifths. But page 12 would be a real good place to be right now to understand these key relationships. Okay, this is a crude rendering of the circle of fifths, but it's still effective and useful. I just finished saying that 2 keys are said to be closely related if their key signatures differ by no more than 1 accidental. Okay. So an example of 2 closely related keys would be C major and F major, because C major has no flats, no sharps, and F major has 1 flat. So there's a difference of just 1 accidental in the key signatures, though that's still closely related. But C major and B flat major would not be considered closely related because B flat major has 2 flats, and the key signature between C and B flat differs now by more than 1 accidental. It differs by 2 accidentals. Does that make sense? Include major and minor keys, it doesn't matter. I'd say the best way to find, the best way to identify all the closely related keys to a starting key or given key is to imagine or picture the circle of fifths. If I want to picture or tell you what all of the closely related keys are to C major, guess which ones they are? They're the ones that are right next to or adjacent to C major on the circle. That they're nearest to C on the circle. So that means A minor is a closely related key, F major and D minor are closely related keys, and G major and E minor are closely related keys to C. Because all of those keys' key signatures do not differ from C major's key signature by more than 1 accidental.
So you said A minor is included?
Yes.
So how would you know if you want us to put it under closely related or
Yeah. Well, because on the homework assignment, I think one of the choices is to say that 2 keys, you can say they are relative and closely related, as opposed to just one or the other. I think it'll be clear by the time we're done, and we can go through future examples. Yes?
So then what happens with like F sharp to C flat? If you technically is like technically is weird.
Well, you mean like here to here?
Yeah, because you would have,
Yeah, F sharp major and C flat major are not closely related.
okay.
I mean, I know they are close on the circle of fifths, but think about their two key signatures. They're so widely different that they're not even in the same universe or ballpark, so to speak. Yeah, they have to have the definition for close related keys. It has to be all their signature is different by no more than one accidental. But that would include any keys that have the same key signature, right? Because C major and A minor, for instance, they have the same key signature. Isn't it not true? Is it not true that their key signatures do not differ by more than one accident? So that means, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that any two keys that are relative are also closely related by definition. But all closely related keys are not necessarily relative. The bottom thing right here. All relative keys are closely related by definition. Because their key signatures will be identical, they will not differ by more than one accident. But not all closely related keys are relatives of each other. For instance, C major and F major are closely related, but they're not relative keys because the key signatures aren't identical. Alright, so closely related keys can be your friend. In fact, we're going to be dealing with closely related keys a lot once we start talking about key changes and modulations. You need to know that to any given key, any starting key, whatever, there are always going to be 5 closely related keys to that given key. That's the magic number 5. Take any key on there, let's say A flat major. There are exactly 5 closely related keys to A flat major. And they're the ones nearest to A flat on the circle first with the similar key sign. E flat major, C minor, F minor, A flat major, B flat. See that? So for instance, if I ask you in a future quiz or test, give me the 5 closely related keys to A flat major, you would say, it doesn't matter in any particular order, it doesn't matter how you list them, but you would say E flat major is one, C minor is another, F minor is another, D flat major is another, and B flat minor is the last one. And you can list them in any order, but you have to have these 5 keys. You see why I picked those 5 off the circle? Because they're nearest to A flat major, and we don't include A flat major itself. What I have to do is keep that to start. And all of these keys, their key signatures do not differ from A flat's key signature by more than one accidental. A flat has 4 flats, so does F. These two have 5 flats, these two have 3 flats. There you've got your closely related keys. Let's try another one here, looking at the circle. Who can tell me the 5 closely related keys to B minor? In no particular order. Okay.
D major,
A, D major,
A major,
A major,
F sharp minor, G major, and E minor.
that's right. Those are the 5 closely related keys to B minor. All the ones surrounding the B, but not B itself. One way to think of it is you can look at these. Those are the 5 closely related keys to B minor. There's my kidney bean for the day. Okay. So, in the future though, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to give you a key, I'm going to ask you for the 5 close related keys, and I'm not going to let you look at this, unless you want to take the time and draw it on your own quiz paper or test paper or something. But so you kind of got to know approximately what keys are where on the circle of fifths if you want to use the circle of fifths method for finding 5 closely related keys. There is another way for finding 5 closely related keys to a given key. I think I have time to show you that. There's actually several different ways, but I don't really like to go through all of them because it just gets too confusing to go through all of them. So I hope this method makes sense, but this is another way to find the 5 closely related keys to a given key. What I can do is I can put the Roman numeral of the chord type on each scale degree in D minor. So for instance, in D minor, the chord on scale degree 1 is minor. The chord on scale degree 2 is diminished. The chord on scale degree 3 is major. Chord on scale degree 4 is minor. The chord on scale degree 5, by the way, in order to do this with minor keys, you have to use the natural minor. So the chord on scale degree 5 is going to be minor. The chord on scale degree 6 will be major, and the chord on scale degree 7 will be major. These are the chord qualities, diatonic chord qualities I get just using the notes of the natural minor scale. Now, the 5 close related keys to D minor are the major and minor keys represented by these chords, the Roman numerals. So let's pretend that this, what this means is that minor 1 refers to the key of D minor. Well, we know that D minor doesn't have to be closely related to D minor because it's one and the same thing. And I'm not going to use any triad that's diminished because that can't represent a key. Keys can only be major or minor. What major key would this Roman numeral represent? F major, right? Let's just pretend that what it does is we're trying to say that the Roman numeral represents a key. What key would this represent? Right, the 4 is G, and it's lowercase, so that would represent G minor. The 5 is A, so that would, and it's lowercase, so that will represent A minor. The 6 in this key is B flat, and it's major or capital. And then the 7 is C, and that's capital, so it will represent C major. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the 5 closely related keys to D minor are these 5. That's another way to find them if you can't envision a picture, mentally picture the circle of fifths. I tend to use the circle of fifths, but this will get you the same answer of 5 closely related keys every time. It's the 5 keys that are represented by the major and minor triads. Only the major and minor triads diatonic to the scale. Let's see here. Yeah. The diatonic major and minor triads of the home key. So for instance, maybe I should have started with a major key. Let's start with E major. What are the Roman numeral qualities on each scale degree major? Scale degree 1, we get a major chord. Scale degree 2, we get a minor chord. 3, we get a minor chord. 4, we get a major chord. 5 major, 6 minor, and 7 diminished. Don't even deal with 1. You gotta cross out all any diminished. What's left are the 5 major and minor triads that represent the 5 close to the keys. What's the root of a 2 chord in E? F what? F sharp. And this is lowercase. So this Roman numeral represents the key of F sharp minor. What's the root of a 3 chord in E? G sharp, and it's lowercase. So this Roman numeral represents G sharp minor. The root of the 4 chord in E is A, and it's capital, so it represents the key of A major. The root of the 5 chord is B, and it's capital, so it represents B major. And the root of the 6 chord in E is C sharp, and it's lowercase, so it represents C sharp minor. And these, therefore, are the 5 closely related keys to E major. Sometimes I hesitate to explain this method of finding the 5 closely related keys because it's a little more convoluted. There's a lot more calculations to make. You don't even have to use this. If you can just picture and envision the circle of fifths, and if I say, okay, find the 5 closely related keys to F minor, if you can picture where that is on the circle of fifths and know what the 5 keys are nearest to F minor on the circle, you'll get the right answer. Does that make sense? But I guess in the future, I want you to pick one method or the other. Either choose the circle of fifths method or choose this method, but you've got to have a way to, with certainty and with accuracy, find the 5 closely related keys to any given. Okay, where did I end up? The last key relationship possible between any 2 keys is something called distantly related keys, and I have that on the board. Another term that means the same thing are foreign keys. What's the definition of 2 keys that are distantly related? 2 keys that are not any of the other types are distantly related. 2 keys that are not enharmonic, parallel, relative, or closely related are said to be distantly related. So an example, C major and E major. Those are foreign keys or distantly related keys because C major and E major cannot be called enharmonic, they cannot be called parallel, they cannot be called relative, and they cannot be called closely related. So distantly related is kind of a catch-all for everything else. And we're going to find out next class that it is so much easier to shift key or to modulate between 2 keys that are closely related. And it's a lot harder to modulate between 2 keys that are distantly related. Easy to do 2 keys that are closely related, to go between them. Harder, more difficult to modulate between 2 distantly related keys. Movement between 2 distantly related keys is considered a modulation again, because 2 different tonal centers are involved. Same thing with closely related keys. If you go between 2 closely related keys, you are doing a modulation, you are changing key officially. Does anyone have any questions so far? It's a lot of information about how many key relationships were there to 5? Okay, so this is just a picture of the page that's going to be for a homework for Wednesday. This is workbook page 161. And I just want to show you a little bit, go through maybe 1 or 2 of each of these just to show you how to do them. And show you how the instructions will steer you in the right direction and hopefully make it clear to you what you're supposed to do. So on page 161, section A, when it says name the relative key in each case, who can tell me again what is a relative key? Okay, they share a major and a minor key that share the exact same key signature. So what is the relative minor? This is, by the way, capital means major key. So this is G flat major. What's the minor key that has the same key signature?
What?
E flat minor. Yeah, so you put lowercase e flat in the blank and you're done. Lowercase means a minor key. Capital means a major key. The very next one, number 2. What's the relative minor, I guess in this case, of A major? F sharp minor. The same key signature. You see how to do those? It's not that bad. And you can use a circle of fifths if you want. It's on page 12 of your textbook. If that helps you, although I would try to wean yourself off of that, because the more you have up here, the easier it is, the faster it goes. All right, letter B, we've done a lot of these. Name all the keys closely related to the given key. Be sure to use uppercase for major keys and lowercase for minor keys. And I think we did number 1, I think, already on the board. I erased it. Who can tell me, can anyone do that just by thinking, what are the 5 closely related keys to B minor? In no particular order.
D major.
D major?
The A.
Okay, A major.
F sharp minor.
F sharp minor.
And then G
G
major.
major.
And
E minor. So you would write in no particular order, you write capital D for D major, capital A for A major, capital G for G major, then lowercase f sharp for F sharp minor, and lowercase e for E minor. Makes sense? And do you know that this is in a previous edition of the workbook, probably the one prior to this, you have the 8th edition. The 7th edition of the workbook, did you know that in section B they only put 4 blanks for each key? I was like, I don't know, it was just like ridiculous. Because we know that everyone knows that there's 5 closely related keys to a given key. So I had to put an extra blank on all those and photocopy the page for all my students. Because they had an editing error, they had a mistake in it. And these are things that, theorists do get excited. All right, last but not least, name the relationship in each case. See how each problem gives you 2 keys. Number 1 is D major and E minor. What is the relationship? Are those enharmonic? Are they parallel? Are they relative and closely related? Are they closely related or are they foreign? Now, notice the placement of the comma here. Enharmonically equivalent is one choice. Parallel is another choice. Relative by itself is not a choice. Relative always gets combined with closely related. You see how there's no comma? Oh, you can't see that. You see how there's no comma in between relative and closely related? So that is all one type of answer. Make sense? And then after that, closely related is a possible answer, and then foreign or distantly related. So what do we have? D major and E minor. Which is the answer here that we should use? Closely related. They're not the same key signature, but their key signatures differ by no more than 1 accidental. So that's closely related. Oh, here, let's do number 2 and maybe finish off with this one. This one should be straightforward. E flat minor and G flat major. What's the actual answer? What's the best answer here?
relative. Verse. Yeah.
Good. Relative and closely related. Because all keys that are in relative relationship are automatically closely related. Okay. Don't worry, this is background work. Once you know this stuff, it's going to make modulation a whole lot. So we're just laying the ground. So for Wednesday, hopefully all the printers and copiers will be working. But anyways, it's just works on page 161. And that's all we'll do for today. We'll stop there. Yep.